Welcome to another one of my random geography and culture facts videos. Let's begin. This map shows KFC locations per 1 million people in each US state. As you'd expect, Kentucky has the most at 24, West Virginia 23, while DC has none. Costa Rica doesn't use standard street addresses. Instead, locations are described using landmarks and distances. For example, you might say 200 meters north of the church, blue house on the right. Fake weddings, or bodas falsas, are staged parties common in Uruguay and Argentina that mimic real weddings but without a legal marriage. These events have become popular for their over-the-top celebrations, including a fake bride and groom, emotional vows, and a wild reception. Professional actors often play the couple, and guests party just as they would at a real wedding. Indigenous residents of Chukotka, an autonomous region in Russia's northeast, and Alaska, USA, can visit each other's regions without a visa if they have relatives that live there. Vatican City is believed to have the highest crime rate per capita in the world. This is because of its tiny resident population of around 800 people and the millions of tourists visiting annually. The vast majority of reported crimes are petty thefts, such as pickpocketing and purse snatching, committed by tourists targeting other tourists. It also has the highest percent of foreign-born citizens, at 100%. A 2024 Ledger survey asked Canadians if they supported Canada becoming the 51st U.S. state. Nationally, 82% opposed, 13% supported, and 5% were unsure. Opposition was the highest in the Atlantic provinces, 90%. India hasn't conducted a census since 2011, so current estimates could be off by millions. Rice was a major cash crop in South Carolina and Georgia from the 1600s to the 1800s, with Carolina gold rice being highly valued. West African enslaved people brought the knowledge of irrigation, tidal flood control, and soil management, making large-scale cultivation possible. This image shows Google Earth labeling differences based on location. In the US version, this gulf is labeled the Gulf of America, while the UK version includes both names. The Mexican version keeps the original name. While Nevada was ultimately named after the Sierra Nevada mountain range, meaning snow-covered in Spanish, the state was almost named Humboldt, after German explorer and scientist Alexander von Humboldt. In 1941, residents of Northern California and Southern Oregon proposed creating the state of Jefferson, arguing that they were underrepresented by their state governments. The movement gained traction, and local leaders even declared independence for a short time. But World War II shifted priorities, and the idea faded. A second movement occurred in 2016 after the presidential election, as most people in the region are Trump supporters, while the surrounding region is not. Bangladesh and Argentina have the highest concentration of tornadoes outside the US. Bangladesh experiences powerful tornadoes due to its humid climate and pre-monsoon storms, while Argentina's Pampas region sees frequent tornadoes as warm Amazon air meets cold air from the Andes. Equatorial Guinea is the only African country where Spanish is the official language. However, French and Portuguese are also official, but this was done for economic and political reasons. Very few people in the country actually speak French and Portuguese. If you're interested in both Equatorial Guinea as well as the Spanish language, I've been working on a project the last few months that may interest you. I've been learning Spanish for the last year with a goal of dubbing my own videos instead of using AI. I've been using a method called comprehensible input after wasting way too much time using conventional apps. So instead of memorizing grammar rules, you'll read and absorb the language in context, making language easier and effective. But when I started using this method, I had a problem finding interesting content to read at the lower fluency levels. Almost every source out there was a boring story or a children's book. So I created something I wish I had months ago. It's a website filled with content I'm interested in at the beginner to intermediate levels. And I can only assume since you're watching this video, the topics will be interesting to you as well. It's only $5 a month to access hundreds of articles, but there are 25 available for free if you'd like to check it out. More articles are added daily, and more features are on the way as well. Type in notboringspanish.com or click the link in the description. Thousands of escaped slaves lived in the horrid conditions of the Great Dismal Swamp. Stretching across Virginia and North Carolina, it was a brutal, mosquito-infested swamp filled with dense trees, snakes, panthers, and waist-deep water. But for thousands of enslaved people, it was freedom. As many as 50,000 escaped slaves and their descendants lived in the swamp at various times. Some stayed for a few months, while others spent their entire lives there, raising families in secret. They built hidden cabins on dry patches of land, hunted, fished, and even grew crops. Maria Teresa Reef is a phantom island that was reported in the South Pacific in 1843. Subsequent searches, including extensive efforts in the 1970s, have found no evidence of its existence. The words Arctic and Antarctic come from Greek. Arctic comes from Arcticos, meaning of the bear, referring to the constellation Ursa Major, near the North Pole. Antarctic comes from Antarcticos, meaning opposite of the Arctic. This can be interpreted as no bears, which is fitting since polar bears live in the Arctic, but there are none in Antarctica. The Nika Mine in Chihuahua, Mexico, contains the Cave of the Crystals, home to some of the largest natural crystals on Earth, with some reaching over 12 meters or 39 feet long. The cave is extremely hot and humid, requiring protective gear for entry. Oymyakon, Siberia is the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth, with temperatures often below -60 degrees Celsius or -76 degrees Fahrenheit. China's one-child policy resulted in between 30 million to 60 million girls missing. This was due to sex-selective abortions and infanticide, at least that's the common assertion, but a professor at the University of Kansas claims these girls just simply weren't reported and show up later in official numbers. These girls weren't reported so the parents wouldn't have to pay a fine for another child. The professor claims that millions show up later in work, marriage, and education statistics. For example, when comparing the number of children born in 1990 with the number of 20-year-olds in 2010 was found to have 4 million more people, with about 1 million more women than men. This goes completely against the idea of China having a large imbalance of men to women. Local officials are apparently aware of the situation, but turn a blind eye in return for social stability. This is just an image of the progress on Egypt's new presidential palace. This was desert less than 10 years ago. This map shows each U.S. state's biggest export trading partner, highlighting key trade relationships. Canada dominates most states, while Mexico leads in the Southwest, and China is top in the Pacific Northwest. Some states have unique partners due to specific industries. The longest straight road in the world is Highway 85 in Saudi Arabia, stretching 260 kilometers or 162 miles without a single turn. Nearly all languages have similar words for mom and dad. The reason is rooted in infant speech development, where babies tend to produce simple, repetitive sounds like ma, ba, and da early on. The Kowloon walled city in Hong Kong, before being demolished in the 1990s, had about 30,000 people and 6.4 acres, giving it a population density of approximately 1.2 million people per square kilometer. For comparison, New York City, the most densely populated major city in the U.S., has around 11,000 people per square kilometer, meaning Kowloon walled city was over 100 times more crowded than New York. The New York City flag has blue, white, and orange stripes, taken from the Dutch flag to honor this city's origins as New Amsterdam. This seal in the center features a sailor and a Native American, symbolizing maritime and indigenous history, along with a windmill, beavers, and barrels, representing the Dutch fur trade. The year 1625 marks the city's founding. To the Pharisees and religious elite, Jesus may have seemed like a country bumpkin, an unpolished teacher from the rural province of Galilee. He grew up in Nazareth, a small, unremarkable town, and spoke with a Galilean dialect of Aramaic. This dialect was distinct enough that people could recognize a Galilean by their speech alone. The Babylonian Talmud states that Galileans were careless in pronunciation, often failing to distinguish between similar-sounding words, which led to misunderstandings. Because of this, they were considered unrefined speakers and thought to be unsuitable as teachers, since precise speech was essential for interpreting and explaining the Torah. The Bible reflects this linguistic distinction in Matthew 26:73, when Peter is accused of being a follower of Jesus because your accent gives you away. Aramaic is still spoken today by small communities in the Middle East and diaspora, but it has changed a lot since the time of Jesus. Jesus' hometown of Nazareth was home to just a few hundred people in his lifetime. Today, it is home to around 80,000 residents and is known as the Arab capital of Israel. 69% of the population is Muslim and 31% Christian. This visual capitalist map shows how long $1 million in Social Security lasts for retirement in each U.S. state. West Virginia is the most affordable at 89 years, while Hawaii is the most expensive at 12. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button. Oh, and don't forget to check out notboringspanish.com if you're interested. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.